President Trump had never shut down an airport before, but what happened in Alaska skies that morning changed everything. At Anchorage International Airport, passengers were just starting their day, checking bags, getting coffee, and heading to their gates. None of them knew they were about to be part of a story that would reach all the way to the White House. Deep in Alaska's snowy wilderness, one flight was about to show just how dangerous air travel could become when things go wrong. It was a crisp winter morning at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, the kind of morning where coffee steam danced in the cool air and passengers hurried through terminals, clutching their paper cups like lifelines. At Gate 37, a Boeing 737 waited, quietly like thousands of flights before it. This one seemed utterly ordinary. The aircraft gleamed in the morning sun, its fresh paint job making it look almost new despite having logged over 25,000 flight hours. The ground crew moved around it with practiced efficiency, performing their routine checks with the precision of a well-rehearsed dance. What made this flight different wasn't visible to the naked eye. Hidden beneath the surface, beyond the reach of standard pre-flight inspections, something was waiting to turn this routine journey into one of the most remarkable incidents in Alaska's aviation history. The weather that morning couldn't have been more perfect for flying. Clear skies stretched endlessly above, with just a few scattered clouds painting white brushstrokes against a blue canvas. The forecast predicted smooth conditions all the way to the aircraft's destination. Sometimes, though, perfect conditions can be deceiving. As passengers filed aboard, none could have guessed they were about to become part of a story that would change aviation safety protocols forever. They were everyday people, travelers tapping, away on laptops, families heading on vacation. Each had their own reason for choosing this flight, unaware that their decision would lead them into an experience they would never forget. In the cockpit, the flight crew went through their standardy procedures. The captain, a veteran with over 15,000 flight hours, and the first officer, equally experienced, worked in harmony. They reviewed weather reports, checked systems, and prepared for what should have been another routine flight from Alaska to New York. The maintenance log showed nothing unusual. The aircraft had received its scheduled checks, and everything appeared to be in perfect working order, but sometimes even the most rigorous safety protocols can miss the smallest detail. A detail that, under the right circumstances, could cascade into something much more significant. As the engines spooled up, their familiar whine echoed across the tarmac. There was no indication that this flight would be different from the thousands that had departed Anchorage before it. The ground crew gave their final signals. The pushback was smooth and the aircraft began its taxi toward the runway. The morning sun cast long shadows across the taxiway as the plane made its way to the departure point. Other aircraft moved around it in the carefully choreographed dance of airport traffic. Air traffic control cleared them for takeoff, their voice crackling through the radio with the same routine professionalism they showed for every departure. The takeoff roll began normally. The engines responded with their usual power as the aircraft lifted off from runway 4 left, banking gently over the Alaska mountains. Nobody could have predicted what would unfold in the next 47 minutes. The plane climbed steadily through 3,000 FT, then 5,000, then 10,000, cutting through the morning air with practiced ease. As the aircraft leveled off at cruising altitude, something began to change. It started so subtly that most passengers didn't notice it at first. But in the complex systems of a modern airliner, even the smallest anomaly can be the first warning sign of something much more serious. Think about the last time you were on a plane. Did you notice every little vibration, every slight change in engine sound? Would you have recognized the difference between normal flight characteristics and the first hint of trouble? For the passengers and crew of this flight, that distinction was about to become frighteningly clear. So what exactly was that first sign of trouble, and why did it make this veteran flight crew's blood run cold? The first indication emerged 23 minutes into the flight. A subtle vibration, barely noticeable at first, began resonating through the aircraft's starboard side. Most passengers were settled into their routines by then, some dozing off, others immersed in books or tablets. But for those seated near the right wing, something felt different about this particular tremor. High above the Alaskan mountains, the vibration slowly intensified. It wasn't the usual turbulence that frequent flyers had grown accustomed to. This sensation had a distinct rhythm, a mechanical pulse that seemed to whisper through the airframe. In the cockpit, initial instrument readings showed minor fluctuations in the right engine's performance metrics. Nothing alarming yet, but enough to warrant closer monitoring. The flight data recorder later revealed that the engine's internal temperature had begun climbing at a rate of 2 degrees per minute, slow enough to avoid triggering immediate alarms, but fast enough to catch the attention of the experienced flight crew. The pilots monitored their instruments with growing concern, noticing subtle discrepancies in the engine pressure ratio readings. After a few minutes, the vibration pattern changed. What started as a gentle tremor had evolved into a more pronounced shudder. The right engine's power output began fluctuating, causing minor but noticeable speed variations in the passenger cabin. Drinks rippled gently in their cups, and window shades rattled with increasing intensity. The cockpit warning system remained surprisingly quiet. Modern aircraft are equipped with sophisticated diagnostic systems designed to detect and alert crews to potential problems. Yet somehow, this particular issue seemed to exist in a gray area, serious enough to be concerning, but not severe enough to trigger automated warnings. It was a kind of situation that highlighted the irreplaceable value of human experience and intuition. Flight attendants noticed it too. Their trained eyes picked up subtle signs that something was amiss. The normal hum of the aircraft had acquired an unusual undertone, a discordant note in the otherwise familiar symphony of flight sounds. They exchanged knowing glances, their years of experience telling them this wasn't typical turbulence. Onboard computers began logging irregular data patterns. The right engine's fuel flow showed microscopic fluctuations, deviating from normal parameters by fractions of a percent. These deviations, while minor, painted a picture of growing mechanical stress. The engine's internal components were experiencing forces they weren't designed to handle, though the full extent of the problem remained hidden. The aircraft's position over the mountains added another layer of complexity to the situation. Standard procedure for engine anomalies typically involved a precautionary descent to lower altitudes. However, over-mountain operations require maintaining sufficient altitude for safety. The flight crew found themselves balancing these competing priorities, all while monitoring the steadily deteriorating engine performance. Radio communications with air traffic control remained routine, but the crew had already begun discussing contingency plans. Their training emphasized the importance of staying ahead of the situation and preparing for multiple scenarios while managing the immediate challenges. The flight crew made contact, declaring an emergency and requesting immediate priority for landing. Anchorage's control tower responded without hesitation, clearing all other traffic and preparing emergency services along the runway. Inside the cabin, passengers were aware something was wrong. The sound alone was enough to cause concern, but the cabin crew, despite their own fears, remained composed, moving down the aisles to calm travelers and ensure everyone was secured for an emergency landing. Safety instructions were repeated, seat belts were checked and double-checked, and the passengers clung to hope, many for the first time fully realizing the gravity of the situation. Outside, the Anchorage runways were a flurry of activity. Fire. Trucks, ambulances, and emergency personnel lined the tarmac, engines running and lights flashing. Airport operations had been halted. All incoming and outgoing flights were either grounded or redirected. For the first time during his presidency, Donald Trump had ordered an airport shutdown, not for political purposes, but to ensure the safety of one aircraft and its 178 passengers. Back in the air, the plane now approached its final descent. With one engine providing unreliable thrust and the other pushed to its limits, the pilots had to maintain a delicate balance. Every control movement, every adjustment was made with extreme care. The nose dipped, flaps extended, landing gear deployed, all timed with precision. As the plane approached the runway with a damaged engine, turbulence and a sudden crosswind made landing difficult. The aircraft touched down hard, brakes and reverse thrust straining to stop it. Emergency vehicles rushed alongside until the plane finally came to a halt. Passengers erupted in relief. Everyone had survived. A cowling had torn off just before landing, but caused no further damage. President Trump praised the crew's calm under pressure. The incident, later traced to a cracked bracket, led to nationwide inspections and new FAA regulations. For passengers, it was an unforgettable brush with disaster.